To come out this evening. I've been offered to come and talk. I was receiving some email about M103, specifically a private member's motion on Islamophobia, and it got a lot of interest. And so I reached out to the club and said, hey, is this something you want to talk a bit more about? And so I'm really glad that some of the members from other clubs are able to join us this evening. So I'll keep it fairly informal. If you have questions or comments as we go through, let me know. But I have a few slides I'll take us through, a couple of video clips that we'll watch. And then I've thrown in some other things that we're working on there that have been received some interest locally, and I can breeze through those, or if they're of interest, then I can talk about those in a bit more detail as well. But the main part of the presentation is going to focus on M103, which is the anti-Islamophobia motion that one of my colleagues introduced in the House. So I'll just get into it. Now, anybody who hasn't seen it, I thought it would be useful because, again, lots of misinformation about what's contained in this motion. And so bear with me, I'll walk you through the elements of it because I think it's really important to actually see what's there, because some of the things that were being talked about in the media and social media were frankly false and misinformed. And so clause by clause, the text of this motion, and I'll get into what the kind of importance or significance of a motion is versus a bill in the House of Commons. So first of all, the text of the motion calls that, in the opinion of the House, the government should, and there's a few pieces here. So the first is simply to recognize the need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear. And this is something that we've seen really since the 9/11 attacks in 2001. That's particularly related to the Muslim community. There's been a change in the narrative, and I'll get more into that in detail, but we've seen this change over the last 15, 16 years, and I really feel that it's time to really address the kind of narrative that's going on related to the Muslim community specifically, but in many cases there's other groups that are still being targeted, the Jewish community, and in fact all religions seem to be targets of negative comments from time to time. So the first part of it is just simply that there's this need to quell the increasing public climate of hate and fear that we see in Canada and in fact across the westernized world. Secondly, to condemn Islamophobia specifically, and I'll talk about why Islamophobia was singled out as to be mentioned here, but it's not only about Islamophobia, it also says, and all forms of systemic racism and religious discrimination. And take note of the House of Commons petition E411 and the issues raised by it. And I'll mention 411 when I get into the narrative of the thing. But this is not only about Islamophobia, but it's saying that we have a particular problem with Islamophobia, so let's focus on that, but not at the exclusion of any other things. The third piece of it is request the Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage undertake a study on how the government could. And then there's two things here. So the first is develop a whole-of-government approach to reducing or eliminating systemic racism and religious discrimination, including Islamophobia in Canada, while ensuring a community-centric focus with a holistic response through evidence-based policy making. So essentially evidence-based decision-making related to this trend that we're seeing related to hate and fear and those types of things in society. And the second part of the study that would be called for is to collect data to contextualize hate crime reports and conduct needs assessments for impacted communities. So again, not just the Muslim community, but any community being impacted by these kind of crimes. And then the committee should present its findings and recommendations to the House no later than 240 calendar days from the adoption of the motion, provided that in its report the committee should make recommendations that the government may use to better reflect the enshrined rights and freedoms in the Constitution Act, including the Canadian rights and freedoms. So that is the motion that's before the House. And there has been lots of misinformation about what's in there. We've had, this is going to introduce Sharia law in Canada. It's going to penalize people, send them to jail for saying anti-Muslim things in the country. It's that kind of misinformation that's out there that really is false. And this is specifically the wording that we have before us and what has been debated for now 2 hours in the House of Commons. And there will be a vote, and it could be as early as next Wednesday. When we'll be voting on M103. So that's the context for what's before the House. Are there any questions on that? before I move on, while I have the text
Yes,
up.
why not remove the word Islamophobia?
That's right.
Okay, and I'll get
That's
to
it.
that, why there's a
That's very
specific,
simple.
why I feel,
We have a
and
solution,
why
we
I
can take
support
it.
this. So
Yeah.
it's not to the exclusion
Yeah.
of anything else, but it is to deal with the specific issue. So, and I'll speak to that. Yes,
I understand this is purely advisory.
yeah, absolutely, and I'll get into what a motion is.
Okay.
So, and what the difference is between a motion and a bill. Any other comments before I move off the text, Gloria?
Is this a result of Donald Trump's edicts that are coming from across the border?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a result, but that weighs into it. It's just the whole anti-Muslim narrative
Well,
we're seeing.
it isn't helping.
Exactly. And I would say that, you know, the things that we all do in our actions and words it can help the situation or it can make it worse. And I'll get into that as we get into the discussion. So just to give a bit of context to, you know, what has been going on locally, my office on this motion has received over 300 emails and phone calls. And that's one of the higher numbers of response we've had from constituents about anything we've done. ICRA, the member of parliament who introduced this, I just need to refer to the notes. I think she's had more than 50,000 emails.
Who is this?
She's the member of parliament who actually,
What is her name?
ICRA,
Spell that.
IQRA, ICRA Khalid, right up here.
Oh,
So she's represents Mississauga Aaron Mills in southern Ontario. And so there has been a lot of interest generated in this, and like I say, a lot of it has simply been misinformation, and that has fueled some of the kind of sentiment and responses to this. Yeah, she's had over 50,000 pieces of mail. Now, we don't know if that's unique individuals, that could be trolls that are doing things, but, and I'll actually share with you, to give you a sense, and this is some pretty strong stuff, but we'll see now with Anthony's help if I can get the video to play. And this is a clip that ICRA actually, of her speaking in the House of Commons related to feedback that she's had. Has anybody seen this clip? It was circulating on social media. Okay.
Now we need technical help here.
Okay. And volume.
Oh, yeah.
No need to debate her. Simply remind her that she is merely a woman and she needs to sit the blank down and shut the blank up. She has to comply according to Sharia. Kill her and be done with it. I agree. She is here to kill us. She is sick and she needs to be deported. Real Canadians will rise up and get rid of the nasty, blank, muzzy stench in Ottawa. They should all go the blank back to your blank hole where you belong. We will burn down your mosques, draperhead Muslim. Why did Canadians let her in? Ship her back. Why don't you get out of my country? You're a disgusting piece of trash, and you are definitely not wanted here by the majority of actual Canadians. Blank off Pakistani, Talibani, you blank yourself and go back to your blank hole of a country where you blank come from, ugly. If I want to call a Muslim piece of blank terrorist, I will. Go back to your blank hole country where you came from, blank hole. So the little N-word, blank, is whining about go home, you Muslim. You're not home, blanking stupid sand. You're a cultural Marxist inclusivity, blank trying to ruin shoot this blank.
So that is just a small flavor of the kind of dialogue that has been generated in the country, and not saying that members of parliament are above anybody else, but to simply have that kind of hatred come out of a motion that's really meant to try to understand what's happening in society, I find is really disturbing. And I think this is why it's really important as Canadians we actually band together and stand with our Muslim neighbors. The motion that we have that ICRA put forward actually happened before the Quebec City mosque shootings, in which 6 men who were at prayer were murdered while they were practicing their faith. And the member of Parliament who represents them, JohnAldag20170302, is a member of our Liberal caucus, and he spoke quite passionately to our group, and he talked about how he remembers growing up as a kid that there were never Muslims in his community. They were neighbors and friends. He talked about the neighborhood corner store that was run by families that had a different faith. They didn't go to their church, but they were nice people and the kids played together. And somehow we've lost that narrative, and we're seeing that, that we're, as I say, I think 9/11 and 2001 was the beginning of that change in narrative. And now we don't have these different neighbors who practice a different faith. We have these Muslims that we're really singling out. The issue and why we think that Islamophobia deserves special attention is that overall hate crimes in Canada are on the decline, which is a great thing, except for the Muslim community, where in the last 3 years, the number of hate crimes aimed at that community has more than tripled. And so we're seeing a very targeted group of people who are receiving the kind of comments that you've seen from ICRA. And cultural practices, motion that she had called for, or that kind of thing, that doesn't help our understanding. And so I think that it's about what we do as leaders in the community, it's what we do as individuals in the community that can help reshape this narrative. And so ICRA's intent was recognizing a very specific problem in Canadian society right now, saying this is a population that is under threat. And I tell you, there are people that in town, constituents, neighbors, and friends have come to see me and said, they want Islamophobia struck from this because they think that it singles it out. And I've had people say there should be Christianophobia. And it's like, sure, Christianity may be under attack. People are not practicing the Christian faith as they once did, but we're not seeing the same level of violence and intolerance aimed at the Christian community. And I think that when we actually talk about...
Why not Christians don't see that kind of violence as as Muslims do?
Yeah, well, and I think it's, again, part of the, that we've done this division. We're targeting a population.
No, I don't think. It's the Quran teaches them to be violent and to...
I think that is a really dangerous statement, and I have to say that with all due respect.
I'm prepared to say publicly, and I'm prepared to show it on the internet. Not just Wikipedia, but to all other search engines.
Let me take you through, because we have to recognize there's more than 1 billion Muslims in the world. And the Quran does not... Anyway, let me get into a piece here, because I'm learning a lot about the Muslim community. After the Quebec City attacks, I went to the local masala in Langley, and I don't know how many of you know, but we actually have a Muslim masala, a place of worship in Langley. And the men and women who worship there were afraid for their lives, and that's a frightening thing to have, a frightening sentiment to have in our community where people are afraid to go and pray. And so I actually had set up a meeting with Murray Power, the superintendent of the Langley division of the RCMP, and asked over the next couple of weeks if they could just do a drive-by as the men and women were gathering to pray, because I feel that everyone in the community should be able to feel safe in gathering to worship whomever it is that they choose to worship. And the RCMP have agreed to do that, and so they're doing just a drive-by just to have a presence and essentially to show support for that community.
What did we call the followers of the Aga Khan?
Ishmaelis.
Yeah, Ishmaelis, so it's a
Okay,
branch of the Muslim faith.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a strong community within Canada and within the Lower Mainland.
Yes, I know. I have several friends who are Ismailis.
Right, yeah.
They're absolutely stunningly wonderful people.
Right, yeah. So to go to this, talk a bit about the difference between a motion and a bill. So what we have before us is a motion. A motion is essentially, it's a non-binding motion in the House of Commons. So it says, here's something we feel that is important and that the government should pay some attention to. A bill, it actually will make a change in law, or it brings about a law. And so because this is a motion, there is no legal ramifications to it. It's simply saying, here's something Canadians and parliamentarians that we should need to pay attention to. Government business as well, if the government introduces something that says, this is very much the government agenda and we're going to move forward with this. The ICRA, this is, although she's a member of the Liberal caucus, she has done this because it's important to her as a Muslim woman, and it's important to the community that she represents. And so she has come forward with it, but it's not government legislation. It's not Justin Trudeau and his cabinet saying this is an agenda that we're going to drive forward. It's somebody who is saying this is important to me. Now, on private members' bills, my private members' bill will be up in the spring. And I can do a motion and introduce a piece of legislation. So this is the option that each of us have. And ICRA was simply in the order of priority. She had come up and was able to introduce something that she felt was important. So this is what she put out there. I also will point out that this is, like, motions are used all the time in the House of Commons. This isn't something I knew before I got there, but as we have really got involved in this particular discussion, we see them all the time. So in 2004, there was a motion from an NDP member in Victoria, I think it was in Victoria, who actually called for an end to discriminatory gay blood ban. And at that point, gay men could not donate blood, and it was deemed to be discriminatory because the evidence indicated that there was no greater risk given the science and screenings and everything else. And so that was done as a motion. Again, it has no legislation, it doesn't make a bill, it just says, this is something we want to pay attention to. So that was one example.
Now when we have a chance, so what is the point of this? Because it has no, it's not the legislation,
Yeah.
it's nothing. So how is it used, or is there some, maybe in the future it will be used somehow?
What comfort do they get by getting this motion?
Okay, so I'll just, so there was also one on anti-Semitism, so we've seen that related to the Jewish community. And I was just going to say, in October of last year, we actually had one motion related to Islamophobia that Tom Mulcair brought forward that was endorsed unanimously by the House of Commons. Now, the way that he did it, it could be introduced to the floor as a result of an e-petition, and that was one we mentioned was E411, and that one had, at that point, it was the highest number of signatures in favor of a petition ever received. I have the, now, anyway, it's now being surpassed by a petition on electoral reform, but it did garner a lot of attention. So these are used all the time. The reason, as you saw in the text, was that ICRA said that she wanted the House of Commons committee, or the Heritage Committee, to actually study this and to come back with some recommendations on things that could be done in Canadian society to change the narrative on racism and hatred, including Islamophobia. And so what would come out of it is that this motion would actually go to the Heritage Committee. They would do a study and then give it to the government to say, here's some things you could consider if you wanted to deal with this. That is what the outcome would be. And they would have to respond to the study within X number of days. There are some other motions like this coming before the House right now. So David McGuinty, a Liberal member, has a motion that's working through that will be debated in the next month or so about studying the Ottawa River watershed. And then that would come to the Environment Committee that I sit on. And we would do a study on impacts to the Ottawa River watershed. We would give it to the Minister of the Environment, and then she could consider if she wants to act on it or not. So it's completely non-binding.
John,
it's just,
we have a sizable Muslim community in Canada.
yeah.
Well, 1 million.
What? And they probably have a national body of that group at a national level.
Right.
If we requested them to pass a motion to the fact that they condemn 9/11 attack in New York way back 10 years ago, would they do it? Just a motion.
I can't speak to that. And
No,
frankly,
no, you can, because you know that they would not.
I don't think
No,
that's a fair statement.
I'm sorry, but
I think it's like, if we said, would the Catholics pass a motion on something, would any Protestant community pass a motion on something? I think that really starts polarizing and dividing. And I'm also...
Well, that's
if
exactly
it's
what
like-
this motion
I'm not
is
getting
doing.
it, I'm frustrated. I have an awful chest cold and I'm really struggling for breath here, so if I'm sounding like I'm
You
going to
know, the
fall
one
over, I'm
thing,
actually
one
not.
thing,
Don't worry,
one thing
Brandon,
which is
John.
probably what comes to mind is that we try to
Don't
be.
breathe on me.
Your prime minister, our prime minister is promoting equality in everything, and this is not. This is we take one religious group, and we handle them. We separate them from the others, and that is actually it doesn't feel right because it's I think that equality. All the Canadians are the same, handle the same, not depending on the religion. So I think on that one is something which is kind of people might not like it. And I would if I say I like it, I would be actually dishonest to myself.
But I think, what I'm trying to explain is why Ikra chose the wording that she did, and it was important to her and her community, and we have the opportunity to debate it. I found the piece on E411, and it's just, with that signature that Tom Mulcair had presented on Islamophobia had gathered 69,742 signatures, more than doubling the previous petitions record, and it's now being surpassed by electoral reform, and it really did gain some positive support within the Canadian population. And I wanted to share the text really related to a comment. There's 3 paragraphs that were in Tom Mulcair's petition on Islamophobia. So the first was simply, Islam is a religion of over 1.5 billion people worldwide. Since its founding more than 1,400 years ago, Muslims have contributed and continue to contribute to the positive development of human civilization. This encompasses all areas of human endeavors, including the arts, culture, science, medicine, literature, and much more. The second point was, recently an infinitesimally small number of extremist individuals have conducted terrorist activities while claiming to speak for the religion of Islam. Their activities have been used as a pretext for a notable rise of anti-Muslim sentiments in Canada. And then the third point, these violent individuals do not reflect in any way the values or the teachings of the religion of Islam. In fact, they misrepresent the religion. We categorically reject all their activities. They in no way represent the religion, the beliefs, and the desire of Muslims to coexist in peace with all peoples of the world. And that, as I say, was adopted unanimously by all five parties in the House of Commons in the fall. And that is very much the message that we as your elected officials are trying to take forward, that there is a role for the Muslim religion in the world, and that there is a group of people who are misusing it to, for ill purposes. But we can't let that taint the entire, more than 1 billion worshippers.
But now when this is a long presentation, so sorry to interrupt. But
Sure.
When these terrorist acts, when they happen, and it's done in the name of Islam, what I would like to see, and I don't think that we see it enough, that when everybody in the world should be saying that it's totally wrong, and it is done in the name of Islam. But I'm kind of surprised that the Islamist leaders are not right away on TV and in the media and saying, we don't like it either.
Good point. Yeah.
And it doesn't happen. So that one is actually kind of disappointing to see, because I always waiting for that. And only one which comes to my mind was it in California when there was.
In today's news, there's 8 people in Vienna who are charged with gang rape, and these are 8 Iraqis who were admitted to the country and are involved in gang rape. On the UK, there's 10,000 children who are victims of what they call grooming, and this was really by Islamic or Muslim gangs gang raping these girls. Now, that you may say is not here, but the trouble is when the parents trying to report it to the police would not listen to them. This has gone on for 10 years. And the reason they wouldn't listen is they said, you are racist. So they immediately stick a label on this, and if you complain, you're racist. And the other thing that's relevant here is that a letter was written by a prominent Muslim, and I agree with you, religious leader, condemning this behavior And I should say that people in the community are saying these girls deserved it, it's their fault. Our girls don't get raped because our girls don't go out at night, so they deserved it. They were asking for it. Now, when this one cleric wrote to all of the mosques and the religious groups in the UK, more than 75% refused to sign his letter condemning this type of behavior. So this is grooming of innocent girls.
Well,
Now, that's probably
sorry,
why.
yeah, and again, I'm not sure where that narrative will take us, because like we see all sorts of, we are not a society without fault outside of the non-Muslim community. We have an awful record.
Not the kind of
related to-
fault that I see on the part of Muslims.
I'm just saying that we have a culture right now that still does not have gender equality. We still have women subject in our communities related to rape and violence
Are
and
you
murder.
saying that because of that we should bear with Islamic inequality?
No, I'm saying we need to work together across all religions, and I think it does nothing to single out a specific religion and say that they are the problem. I'm saying we have a larger issue on a whole bunch of social issues where we need to work together. And to simply say that, we have other extremes, the Bountiful case in BC, you have the same kind of issues with grooming and child brides and all these other things. We have issues of pedophilia in Canada. We have circles related to sex slaves and that are not related to the Muslim community. So I think it's completely unreasonable to say that the Muslim community and faith is responsible for all of these issues. If there are issues that are prevalent across cultures and religions, and I think we need to work together.
Sure.
So going back to why Islamophobia, as I say, was included, it was Ikra's motion, it was important to her and to her community, but it is, right now, I have a couple of stats I'll simply throw out. Hate crimes in Canada, 3.7 per 100,000 people is the average, and the Muslim community has seen more than a doubling of that in the last 3 years. So that is something that other faiths are not seeing. And to me, that should be a cause for concern for all of us.
Excuse me again, I
Yes.
think the fact is here is not saying and not reporting. And it's very clear that, for example, I remember a few years ago there was a case of, there were attacks on synagogues round about at the end of the year, and this got in the paper, was in the paper, 2 or 3, and then somebody said, well, can we compare this to attacks on other religious institutions? And in fact, the attacks on Catholic churches outnumbered that by about 10 times at least. So it's people who are not so well organized, and obviously the Islamic community now is getting very well organized, and again the Jewish community has been very well organized. It's not what happens, it's just the fact is they're not reported, number one. And number two is if you go to the police and the police don't believe you and call you a racist, this is the fact.
Well, on facts, yes, religion is the second most common cause of hate crimes after race, ethnicity. And underreporting is an issue, but again, it's not, the Muslims aren't the only ones reporting and nobody else is. Underreporting is across a broad spectrum of religions and races and gender and that. So the point that where I'll take this is that where we have, I think, a real issue is that we have a group of people who live in the country, more than 1 million Muslim Canadians. And I think we have a real opportunity to be inclusive, as we have been with many people, many religions, many cultures. And with this particular group, because of some of the fringe elements, I think that radicalization is a real risk that we run here. And I think that if we go to the Muslim community and say, you are not welcome, and we're going to target you, we're not going to welcome you, it can actually take people that are trying to live their lives as good neighbors and good citizens. And there are populations, young men in particular, are vulnerable to young women, we've seen that. And that's where we can actually have them take on the radical elements that are not part of the main Muslim faith. And so I think that, again, it becomes part of our role as Canadians to say, you know what, we value you as neighbors, we all get to practice our faith and live here, live peacefully, which is what we do. And that's one way that we can deal with the issue of radicalization. So, I think that there's a message there. It's simply, we need to work at building an inclusive society.
John, you've heard several voices. Most people have not commented. I want to say that the voices you have heard do not speak for me. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate that you came to speak with us. And I'm horrified by the video that you showed and the degree of hate that was shown there. Also, Dr. Willie spoke about the bad things that happened in England to some people. I come from Ireland. There were virtually no Muslims, but I can tell you the things that we were doing to ourselves and to the English was barbaric. So it's not just one particular group. It can happen in any country.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, again, that's the message is just this is an important time for us to make some important decisions about how we want to move forward as a society. Yes, sir.
As a individual who works within an evangelical organization and has studied the Christian Bible, one thing I am cautious on as a teacher is not to pretend to know fully the Quran or its teachings, because my holy book is quite violent and actually very dangerous if taken out of context. And I've seen it preached out of context in words that would compare, if not pale, in comparison to some violent acts in other narratives. And so I am just cautious as a young individual not to pretend I know fully the actual teachings, because I could pull up the Bible on my phone and justify to you why you should rape, pillage, kill. And then taken out of context, it's very dangerous.
And stone, they love stoning in the Bible.
So there is a number of contexts that have to be understood, historical narratives that have to be realized, and I just think it's very dangerous to assume. And also, speaking into what I've seen in the news, there's a large number of individuals who would call themselves Christian because of their grandparents or the community in which they were raised, but are not practicing. And I would imagine that this is not unique to our culture, and there could be other cultures that describe themselves as being Jewish but have never stepped foot in a synagogue, or possibly Muslim who have never practiced or learned, but we're defined by our generations maybe. I believe that is very true in Canada for large people groups who would call themselves Christian, having no idea of what that would represent in daily life.
Actually, I don't think that we should be going into history in this, like we go thousands of years backwards. And talking about
Thank you for your comments. Where are you done? Wayne wanted to go on getting a 5-minute warning here.
It's now a 3-minute warning.
I think that anybody who thinks that Canada hasn't had its fair share of racism and intolerance doesn't really know Canadian history. In a community that my family settled in the 1820s, if a Catholic family moved into the community, they would burn them out simply because they were Catholic. In the 1890s in Winnipeg, people looked at Ukrainians and people from Eastern Europe and thought they were subhuman. In the 1920s, there was an active group of KKK in Saskatchewan. In the 1930s, there was anti-Semitism and fascism in major cities in Canada. And it just goes on and on. And the real answer is that whenever people preach intolerance or understanding based on race or religion, we have to condemn it. And this is just a simple example of that. That's all it is.
And I don't think that Canadian people are intolerant. Like including myself, like I don't have any problem with the person Muslim or whatever they are, Hindu or whatever they are. It doesn't really matter. But in the bottom line is this: we should not separate Muslims from the rest of the Canadians. That's what the problem is.
Essentially, the reason that ICRA did this and why it's gotten some interest is it's important to her and it's a private member's bill.
Yeah. The other thing I could just add, and
I need to close because I'm getting cut off here, but
I say that I think in this project motivated.
I think that this one is specifically about recognizing a threat against our neighbors. And that we all have an opportunity, and I'll simply leave it with you tonight, that each of us can decide what we want to do. And I will say that I've had a couple of emails from members of this club that I have felt have not helped the narrative, and I'm not forwarding, and I'm deleting them. And in fact, I responded to one saying that I don't think that it helps. And I will leave it to each of you to decide at what point you want to participate in the discussion and where you want to say, this is not helping things, and leave it at that, and try to get us back to an inclusive and tolerant society. So with that, as I'm winding up my slides.
Last question.
Yeah.
Last slide.
The Muslim Association, what are you doing with them? I had some dealings with them and some business, and they seem to be fairly decent people to get along with. To solve this problem, you've got to get the Muslims to help you.
Yeah, that's easy.
You've got to work together.
Although, you know what, I actually don't think that it's, I think it's every bit as much our problem as it is their problem. Because, you know, like I say, I've been to their worship services, and they're saying we need to work and live and contribute to our community. When we're saying we're not going to allow them, I think that as a larger group, we need to change